Today we're exploring a topic that can feel surprising or even uncomfortable. What to do when your aging parent or loved one starts dating again. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. Hi, Dr. Lakelyn here. Welcome to Caregiver Chats. I'm a gerontologist and caregiving advocate for Home Instead, an honor company. I'm so glad you're taking the time to join me. These conversations are a space for learning, reflection, and support. I invite you to subscribe to Caregiver Chats on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, I love hearing from you. You can email me anytime at caregiverchats@homeinsteadinc.com. For many aging adults, loneliness is a very real challenge. The loss of a spouse, retirement, or health changes can leave someone feeling isolated. And yet, just like at any other stage of life, the desire for connection, companionship, and even romance remains strong. But here's the tricky part. When an aging parent or loved one starts talking about dating or even introduces a new partner, it can raise a lot of emotions for caregivers and families. Maybe you're unsure how to support them. Maybe you're worried about safety, online scams, or family dynamics. Or maybe it just feels strange to picture mom going on a date or dad finding a new companion. These are very real feelings, and you're not alone in feeling them. That's why I'm so excited about today's conversation. Joining me is April Ibarra, a gerontologist, certified senior advisor, and aging life care professional. If her name sounds familiar, it's because she joined me back on episode 6, Managing Relationships, Caring for a Non-Immediate Family Member. If you haven't listened to it yet, I encourage you to go back and check it out. April brings over 35 years of experience supporting older adults and their families, and she is passionate about helping people age well with dignity, joy, and connection. Together, we'll explore how to start the conversation about loneliness and companionship, how to talk about dating safely in today's world, and what to do if mom or dad introduces a new partner. Welcome back, April. We're so excited to have you again on the Caregiver Chats podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Lakelyn.
Oh, the pleasure is truly mine. I love any opportunity to get to chat with you on anything aging related. But I know that we have talked on many occasions about this topic of romance and dating in our older years or in the second half of life and how that can impact families. And so I'm really excited to dive into that topic today. But for those that might not know you, do you want to share just a little bit about your background as a gerontologist and the work you've done in the field? I think it'd be great for our listeners to learn about you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, like Lakelyn, I also have a background in gerontology. I'm a social gerontologist. And the way I describe that is I look holistically at the aging individual and how they are impacted by the changes that happen as we grow older, right? So often when we're dealing with older adults, it's always about a clinical need, right? I'm worried about mom now has been diagnosed with dementia, or dad has Parkinson's or heart disease or diabetes. I look beyond that, and that's just a component of dealing with the older adult, right? We have to look at their whole life. How are they living as they age? So it's a more holistic approach. And I've spent 40 years in healthcare, at Home Instead, as well as hospitals, rehabs, home care. And currently, I'm actually a private care manager. I started my own company. So I have clients that I walk on the journey with and help them through everything aging.
I love your variety of your background, and I love how you take that holistic look, because we are so much more than our diagnosis or our aches and our pains or whatever physically is happening to us as we get older. We're still, as people age, they still have wants, needs, desires. They want to have meaning, purpose, connection. So it's so important to look holistically.
Yes. And you said two things that are very, very important: purpose and connection. And I certainly understand family caregivers have a huge load, and they look more linear at the immediate needs, right? I'm worried, is dad safe at home? How's he doing now that mom has passed? Or can they stay in this home? It's very logistic and tactical based. And there's just not enough time, honestly, to sit back and look at more of the living aspects of it. What makes them happy? do they have purpose in their day? And research is leaning very heavily. And there's a lot of books. I've got a stack about this big of things that I'm reading that continue to talk about those things being very important, having a purpose and definitely having connections.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and we know as we get older, we have more people who lose loved ones. Maybe they lose a spouse. We're also seeing divorce more prevalent in the aging population, and remarriages and dating and connections. And I recently had someone on and we talked about blended families and kind of how caregiving shows up there. But today we're talking more about kind of the start of those new relationships in the second half of life. And I think sometimes families are maybe hesitant to talk about it, or kind of in denial, or maybe the adult children aren't ready to accept the fact that their loved one wants to maybe start dating again or pursuing emotional connection. But we know that desire for connection continues no matter our age. And so I think I always love talking about this with you, but why do you think that there's kind of this stigma around, dating or romance kind of in those later years?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of people don't. It's not something most adults talk about, right? We tend to think about dating and romance in our younger years, right? But it's part of being a human being. Right? If we don't have love, if we don't have personal connections, I mean, I think even just looking somebody in the eye, when I sit with my clients, I always make sure I sit with them. And if they'll allow me, a lot of times I like to, if it's a lady, I'll hold her hand and I'll just look her in the eye and touch. And, many times they don't even have that kind of connection. Right. So, we're talking about a broad scope of connections and intimacy, and it's a human thing, but we don't really talk about it. And certainly if you're a family caregiver and it's your mom or your dad or even your aunt or uncle, it's not something that is going to be naturally comfortable. However, it's necessary because it is a part of life. And whether you talk about it or not, there are desires and needs based on an individual's preferences. So we can't assume, oh, gosh, mom would never be interested in going on a date. You don't know that, right?
Yeah.
We have to keep the window open and be able to have these conversations and start them so that we're not pushed out of something that may be going on, behind the scenes because they're too afraid to tell you that perhaps they're thinking about dating.
That's a good point. Having open conversation, not shutting down the topic, will it hopefully help families, be more open in their communication around it. Because I think, the adult themselves, they might be ready to kind of move forward and accept, but especially if maybe the adult child lost a mother or a father, they might still be in that grieving process.
Gosh.
And so I think it is important for, both sides to consider the emotions around this whole topic.
Yes, and I think older adults want to have these conversations, but most times they just don't know how to bring it up. So don't assume they don't want to talk about it. Many times they would like to be able to share those feelings and emotions because, again, we're so worried about the framework of their life, right? Do they have a safe place to live? Do they have their medications? Do they have food? But what about, somebody nice to talk to that is not just there to care for them, but is there to have a meaningful connection that can only be received from somebody that's maybe not your adult children.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, do you have any thoughts on how families can go about maybe opening up the door for that conversation? Any conversation starters, or, when you're working with your clients and you kind of talk about this area of connection, are there any kind of prompting questions that you find open up the door for conversation that's a little more approachable?
Yeah. I mean, I always like to just ask them, how are they doing? I mean, are you happy? Are you, I guess understanding too how they spend their time, right?
Yeah.
How maybe mom used to live when dad was alone. They went out to dinner every weekend and they loved that. They walked on Saturday morning. You kind of know their routines. And now that is no longer the picture, Mom, how are you filling your days? Tell me what you did today. Understanding who they're talking to, if they're talking to anyone, right? There is a lot of loss with aging. I mean, there's so many beautiful things about aging, but we can't overlook the challenges that many times people are very lonely for because they've lost someone in their life. They've lost a lot of people, friends included. Maybe they don't drive anymore. So now they can't get out. So, Mom, how are you spending your day? Tell me what you did today. And you can kind of maybe hear a blank, empty slate there, right? So I think just starting with what's important to them. And there's a lot of research on that too, even in healthcare. It's like, we need to know what matters to you. So, Mom, I know, Dad's been gone for about 6 months now. How are you? How are you feeling? Where's your heart? Do you ever see yourself dating again? Are you lonely? Right? And so I think it's just spending some time talking to them on a personal level as a human being, not as a daughter, not as a mom, and just understanding how they are living their life. What are you doing for fun? I always ask my clients that. They kind of look at me like, oh, that's interesting. But many of them do get bored, and I'll have some clients who will say, well, if I didn't have my knitting, I would go crazy. Right. So you can start to feel that, okay, they're not having a lot of social interactions. How can I help guide them? So I think encouraging them that to have connections, and we keep saying the word connections. What do we mean by that? I mean, it could be even friendship connections are important, but certainly romance connections. Sometimes there is a need for that. And we need to encourage them to have people in their life. Have you called your friend, James, who he lives down the street, and I know you guys used to run around all the time as a couple, and have you talked to him lately, right? So you encourage them, find out what they're doing in their life, and let them know that it's okay to think about perhaps having someone in their life. Yeah. Or having dinner with someone. I mean,
yeah, I think that's a great point. It doesn't have to jump right into the dating or romance category. It can be just a new friendship, or reconnecting maybe with friends that you just over time maybe have lost touch with, or just life circumstances haven't allowed for connection. Because, in some situations, maybe mom was dad's primary caregiver and that was all consuming.
Right.
And now she could benefit from reconnecting with some of her friends that she lost touch with over that caregiving journey. So I think that, even just those friendship connections are just as important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, keep asking, what matters to you? Where is your heart? What are you thinking? Do you feel alone? It goes the reverse. Some people are like, oh my God, I never want to get married again. I've been single forever. I'm happy. That's great. But again, we can't assume in everybody's values and preferences and also beliefs, right? Because that falls into it. I just lost my husband. I'm not going to date. That's not appropriate. Okay, that's your preference. So we'll respect that. But over here, somebody else might be totally different. So unless we're talking about these things very gently, very openly, and just broadly, we can't get to perhaps what the real needs are, and how do we encourage and make those opportunities available?
Yeah. Well, and I think, opportunities to date in the older years is becoming more accessible because of things like online dating and just, being able to connect in different ways. And so I think that, there's some skepticism out there about online dating. We know that unfortunately, scammers use that as an opportunity to prey upon older individuals. And so, rightly so, adult children might be, protective and skeptical of their loved one wanting to date. But I think that there's ways to do it that are safe.
Absolutely.
And it can be a great way to meet new people.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I have a friend who I meet with at the gym every morning. He's 85. He's been a widow for a very long time. And he was dating someone. And by dating for him, that meant they went out to dinner, every week. And that was their date. And he loved that. They didn't live together. They didn't have a big romance. But she recently passed, and that left a real hole in his heart. But yes, I think that's the whole reason most families are like, oh my gosh, don't even think about dating, mom. It's too dangerous out there. Yes, it is. And there is millions and millions of dollars lost by older adults in romance scams.
Yes.
And again, it's another reason why we have to talk about it, right? If we're not talking about it, then there's a chance they might go out there and explore some things because they don't want you to know about it, and then you don't realize that they're already way deep down the road, and it happens on
Yeah.
a regular basis. That
Yes.
being said, there's some very obvious things, right? It is so clear when you look at some of these scams what they're about. But regardless of that, people are falling for them, right? So somebody
Mhm.
who comes in and who is just very aggressive in the beginning, moving very fast, confessing their love when they haven't even met you, asking for money is a clear sign. And
Yeah.
we think we wouldn't get scammed, but these folks are so slick, and we're never
They
going to
are.
stop that aspect, right? But we can be cautious in knowing if these triggers come up, these red flags, we're going to run, right? Or I'm going to say to my daughter, "Hey, guess what? He actually we were supposed to meet last night, and he said, oh no, he's stuck in Tokyo, on an oil rig." I hate to say it, but that is a very common one, right?
Yeah.
Even myself, I get requests all the time on social media, not even a dating app, but on social media. And the profiles are always the same. It's a military man. It's somebody very with a flag in the background, looks very, good, or a businessman in a suit, or somebody who works on an oil rig who's currently in another country. It's fairly easy to spot. So that's where we can kind of be their coach. All right, mom, let's get on there and let's take a look at some of these fellas, and I'll help you pick one out, and and we'll talk about whether he's safe or not.
Yeah.
So there are some ways to do it. I mean, I met my husband online late in life, and we just celebrated our 7-year anniversary. But
Congratulations.
I was very savvy. I knew that even online, I knew who the scammers were. They're very easy to spot.
Yeah.
And by having a network around you when you are trying to date online, they can help you.
Yeah.
Go down figure out what might be, iffy or not. And first of all, if they never meet you in person, well, they don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't
Yeah.
find a time to grab a coffee somewhere, let's just assume they're not real.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great kind of teamwork approach to take. Let's explore this together. I'll help you create your profile. We can look at the options and just make it again an open conversation, something that you do together. But I know in some families, when there is a lot of resistance, like, oh, I don't think that's appropriate, or I don't want to know about it. That can be challenging. Or dad all of a sudden has this new girlfriend, and she's starting to come around, or they're going to move in together, and you're like, what? Where did this come from? So sometimes these situations occur. And I remember back in my care coordinator days at Home Instead, there was a few situations kind of like that. And the adult children were just kind of at a loss. They were like, I just don't know what to do. So that communication is important.
Yeah. And I think that's where it is hard to see your parents. Let's just say it's the family, adult children. It's hard to see them as human beings. We see them as mom or dad or grandma, grandpa. But in reality, they're no different than you. And I say, you look ahead and think, when you're that age, what do you think you're going to be like? Right?
Mhm.
Do you think you will absolutely be opposed to still having love in your life, or to going on a date with somebody or meeting somebody new? Do you want your children to tell you, no, dad, that's not safe, stay home?
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And ultimately, the whole problem is that we assume it's our role to make these decisions for them, and it's not. We have to
Mhm.
understand that first, right? If they have capacity to make their own decisions and they have not been deemed incompetent, then they can make bad decisions. They can go out on a date with a jerk. They can move in with somebody who may want their money. They do have a right. That doesn't mean you have to like it or you can't prevent it, but you have to be at the table with them as a partner in this, not as, mom, I'm going to tell you what you can do and what you can't, because as a teenager, that didn't work.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
so why is that going to be different now? So just keep an open mind. And as long as you're at the table with them and a partner in their life and not just trying to tell them what you want or don't want them to do, you're going to have some leeway to help them make better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you bring up a good point, if somebody has the capacity, and I think, dementia, Alzheimer's, any sort of cognitive impairment, that's a little bit of a different story and situation, a little bit different circumstances. But, as gerontologists, we're always advocating for the older adult and their ability to make their own decisions. And so if this is something that they want to pursue, hopefully adult children, family members can come to accept it and find ways to help them do it in a safe manner. Absolutely. With those kind of open doors of communication.
Yeah, again. And keep in mind the flip side of this is if you just make them feel terrible about maybe wanting to date or being lonely, they're probably going to not tell you anything and still go ahead and do it. And then you're not going to know what's going on until they're hitched and calling you from Vegas. Or you could make them feel ashamed or guilty, and then they stay home and they sort of start to wither away because loneliness is a health epidemic. It is now a mental health epidemic. And it's as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, keep in mind that this is not just, oh my God, now I have to deal with mom or dad dating. This is a health issue, right? We need to have connections in our life. And for older adults, some of them will be romantic, some of them will be friendship. It's not always the worst case scenario, but it's worth the risk in some cases, doing it wisely, than just being alone for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Not a good option.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The health impacts of loneliness are something that we can't ignore. And so families do need to, have that open conversation about the connection and asking, do you feel like you have enough connections in your life? Or how can we help you make more connections? And maybe it's not through online dating. Maybe it's helping them find an exercise class like Silver Sneakers or a senior center, and they could find a potential suitor at those places too. But they could also find friends and friendships and connections, and that is just so important.
Right. And somebody may even call that a date. They say, "Well, I go to I go to the senior center, twice a week, and I sit with Mary at lunch." To them, that's dating. Wow, I can handle that, right? And that's so good. And you look at them and you say, if they do start dating, and you see them kind of light up and feel better, and they're a little more pep in their step, and they're feeling more purposeful, you can say, good. That's a good thing. And then, maybe you look on the flip side, maybe they're dating and then all of a sudden you see their moods or behaviors changing and they feel kind of depressed or sad or scared. Talk to them about it. Maybe it's not going well. Maybe they're concerned or it's not going the way they want. So it all comes down to communication.
Yeah.
Being open.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is neat to see, on social media, you'll see people getting married in their 80s and 90s. And sometimes it will evolve to that.
Yeah.
But as you shared, sometimes it'll also be just maybe somebody to go out to dinner with.
Yeah.
And maybe they never move in together. Or maybe they decide to do that.
Right.
Or if your loved one moves into a senior living community, they might find a new romantic partner that lives in the same, community setting as they do, which we know can be common. And gentlemen seem to have the odds in their favor in those kinds of situations.
If a new man walks into the assisted living, he's got more women to choose from than they do because, unfortunately, women live longer than men. So, yeah. And they'll talk about it.
Absolutely. I know we've been talking about kind of like online dating sites, and people might be wondering, which ones maybe are geared more towards an older demographic and maybe other places besides just online dating, because some people might not be ready to take that step.
Oh, absolutely.
But maybe what are some other places they could consider meeting someone new?
Right. Well, love can happen anywhere, right?
It's
I
true.
mean, I've had gentlemen at the grocery store come up and chat with me, and I think that might be a little creepy. But in general, if you smile and you're out in public, you can meet people. But so there's online dating apps, which sometimes for people when they really are serious and they want to find a companion, somebody to spend time with, a dating site is great, right? Because you can go on there, have your grandkids help you set up a profile, really put yourself out there in the way that you want to be seen and be selective. And there are many, 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 many different dating sites. There are some just for seniors. There's Silver Seniors, I believe, is one. eHarmony is another. I mean, there's like Fish in the Sea. There's Christian Mingle. I mean, there's so many. I think maybe ask your friends who may have used
Yeah,
apps. Where
that's a
did
good
you
point.
have success? Sites like Match.com, are open to everybody at every age. So that may not be the appropriate place, but you have an opportunity to put in your age. Don't lie. And then there, we're looking to date somebody 5 years younger, 5 years older, whatever you want. So there are plenty of options in terms of dating sites, but put yourself out there if you're really going to do that. Make a great profile. Have some fun with it, right? But then there's all kinds of people in the world. There's activities. People are playing pickleball now, join a pickleball, group in your community. You have your church, and many of them sometimes do single events. There are so many groups now that have clubs for everything. There's a walking club. There's a book club. There are ways to meet people. Take your pick. Where do you feel comfortable spending time? And what makes
Yeah.
most sense to you as a person? And then go from there and ask your friends for advice.
Yeah, I love that. Ask your friends, see what they're doing, where they're going. But also, if you think about like those special interest groups,
Yeah.
if you're interested in it, then likely you'll meet somebody else in that group that's also sharing those interests. And so that's kind of an automatic connection that you can make with one another. And so I love all of those suggestions. And yeah, encourage people to kind of feel out, what's going to work best for them and try it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to go. You don't have to commit for forever.
You have to find something that fits for you. I'm also intrigued too by solo travel groups. There are so many people who are now doing solo travel. They want to go on a trip. Maybe they don't have anybody to go with. And so on those types of groups, they do put events together. If you're a solo traveler, I was recently on a cruise and they had a special night for solo travelers, and you could just get together and find ways to mingle. So it's endless. Yeah. Open up your mind to what you really want to do and have some adventure. As they say, do something that makes you kind of nervous or uncomfortable. It brings you back to life.
I think,
yeah. So it might feel, it's so scared. But let's say you go on your first date, or you go to a book club by yourself or a hiking club by yourself, and you meet some people. You kind of feel you got a new step, a little swing in your step, and that alone is wonderful thing to have happen.
Yeah, most certainly. Again, it's so important, but we really don't talk about often enough. And I know you and I have done some more kind of structured webinars around it and a lot of things to consider. And so we can link to those in the show notes if people are wanting to really dive deeper into the topic of romance and dating in later years. But any other thoughts or anything we haven't covered yet, April, that you think is important to hit on this topic?
I guess, I think you just have to look at your own emotions. Like if it really does bother you that dad or mom is dating, why? What is it about that situation that is troubling you? Is it fear? Oh my gosh, dad's going to lose all his money. I know a friend who happened, and that happens. We do have to be, smart about it. But again, it's a risk benefit. There's so many risks or benefits from having a partner in your life, a connection in your life, that is worth the risk. And it's not most of it's not rocket science. This stuff is not super sneaky, right? If you start dating online and, or even somebody maybe that you met out in the community and you realize, oh, this doesn't feel right to me. And then they start asking for money, or they just start telling you they love you so much and they want you to move in with them. Well, that's, at any age, that doesn't feel right, right? So we have to go back to common sense. But the risk is worth it to have the benefit of having people in your life that give you meaning. And people are living longer.
Yeah.
So are we
True.
supposed to be lonely for the rest of our life? I don't think anybody would want that,
Right.
So explore your own emotions and figure out what is your fear. You had a better relationship with dad and now mom is dating.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Kind of do some internal reflection. What about this is making me upset? Or and then just continuing that open conversation and dialogue. And I think whenever there is a dating situation or you're introducing someone new kind of into the family, it impacts the family dynamic. So somebody might be thinking, well, the way we, ever since dad's passed, we've all kind of gotten into a new routine. Right. If somebody new comes into the picture, that's going to really shake things up.
Absolutely. Then they have family and all of a sudden it's a holiday and whose house are they going to go to? But let's all be adults and just not realize they're not just mom and dad. They are human beings who have their own needs and desires that they deserve to fulfill in their life.
Absolutely. Well, April, gosh, I always love getting to chat with you about all sorts of topics, including this one, and just grateful for your thoughts and your insights. And, as we are in this month of love, Valentine's Day, February, it's probably top of mind for a lot of folks. And, I think it's just important for all of us to have that connection, whether it's romantic, friendship, family connection, and just continue to surround ourselves as we age with that kind of support system, that connection or that circle of connections around us. And it might need to grow as we get older, or we might need to explore new connections.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I say go for it.
Yes. Sign up for that dating profile. Get out there.
Open up, smile. I mean, I have to say my aunt is she's been widow for about 2 years now, and she's going to the gym every morning. And she has about several men who talk to her on a regular basis. And she's always like, I'm not ready to date yet. I'm not ready to date yet. But I think she sort of enjoys in talking to them. That might be enough for her, right? Because she's feeling somewhat desired. They're kind of paying attention to her. And so there's all kinds of ways this could look. Just be open to it.
Well, April, thank you again so much for joining us. And we'll also connect to your website in the show notes so that people can connect with you and continue to follow your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Lakelyn.
A sincere thank you to April Ibarra for joining me today and helping us reframe how we think about love and connection in later life. To all of our caregivers listening, remember that supporting your loved one's emotional health is just as important as their physical health. Whether it's companionship, dating, or even marriage, love is a part of life at every age. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love if you subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow caregiver who might need a little encouragement today. And you can always reach me at caregiverchats@homeinsteadinc.com. And you can follow us on social at Home Instead Inc. for updates and caregiving tips. Thank you for listening, and please remember to take good care of yourself while you care for others. Caregiver Chats is brought to you by Home Instead. If you're looking for in-home care to support you on your caregiving journey, please visit homeinstead.com to learn more.